Okay, so we had this situation. It's weekend. The client is actually, the main business is a client of mine, and I've worked for him before, but I got kind of a, just kind of like some spidey senses, or kind of some red flags, or just, you know, when they say listen to your gut, you usually do need to do that. And today was a perfect example of that. So I want to put this out there, and I've been wanting to make a video about this, and now it's a good time to help actually give you a real world example of when to listen to your gut and those spidey senses that you have. Sometimes, and it has happened, where people have asked me to try and open something and it wasn't theirs, or they didn't have permission to do so. So that's where the due diligence comes into factor. And I really believe that that is actually put on the locksmith themselves. This is how I take it anyways. And so this is how important it is to me, and this is my method and system of dealing with that. If this makes sense to you and you want to start incorporating it with your business, that's great as well. What we have to remember is what do we sell as locksmiths? Number one, we sell security and peace of mind. When people call us to rekey a house or add a lock or add something to their home or their vehicle or whatever it is, they're paying for peace of mind. They're paying for a professional who is honest and trustworthy, that has integrity to be able to complete the task that they were paid to do when they were paid to do it. Because we bypass security, because it is our job to defeat the things that are supposed to keep the honest people honest, we have to hold ourselves to a whole nother level of trust, honesty, and integrity. So if most people are right here, we need to be up here, or you're not going to have a very successful business. If people don't trust you, they're not going to use your business. They're not going to use your services. So how do we remain trustworthy and verify facts? So let me go into the situation here. I get a phone call, and the younger kid says, hey, I'm locked out of this store, and he gives me the name and the number, and that's how I know it's a client of mine. So I'm like, okay, all right. And he kind of said something that just caught me the wrong way, and was like, yeah, I know this is going to be a little weird, but I really do work here. And I'm like, okay, antenna up, red flag raised, spidey senses tingling. And so I'm like, okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start engaging and using words that are specifically designed to scare somebody away if they're not being completely honest. And so here's the formula that I used. I said, okay, number one, I need to have your manager's name, telephone number, and email address, and I'm going to contact them right now to verify that you're supposed to be there. Now, keep in mind, it's early on a Sunday, so we may not be able to get a hold of that person, but that's option number one, is I want to verify with somebody else. If it's for a company, there's going to be a manager. If it's for a person or a resident, there's going to be an owner of the house or a parent or somebody else that we can verify that. Same thing for cars. People drive other people's cars. People do Airbnb with other people's houses. People let other relatives and family members and friends stay at their other houses and drive their cars. So it's not uncommon. They may have permission, but they may not have permission right then and there from that particular person, and I need to be the one that finds it out. My philosophy is this: I make sure that I gather enough information that I think if I got taken to court, I would be able to cover my assets, CYA, and be able to defend myself and say, I did my due diligence to actually make sure that this happened, okay? And that I did the proper things that I'm supposed to do, so I would catch anything along the way. So I tell him, I'm going to contact your manager. We're going to do these other things. I need your photo ID sent to me. And here's one of the other key buzzwords that I actually use is I'm going to notify the local police department about this call, and if there's any problems or anything comes up, just know that I'll be keeping all of this information, and I will be documenting every step along the way, including recording the process while I'm there, so that if there's any problem, I'm going to turn this information over to them. Now, what did I just do? I just created fear, okay? If they have nothing to hide, then it'll be an immediate, yes, I need to get this done. Please come out and please continue to solve the problem. If it doesn't need to be done right away, or there's a problem, if there's some kind of a problem with that, then what's gonna happen is they're gonna start getting squirrely. And that's what I want. If you start getting squirrely on me when I'm asking these questions and telling you these things, I know that something's up. So, luckily today, he had no problem with it. He sent me his photo ID. He knows I have his address, information, email. He knows that I'm gonna be contacting the manager. He knows that I'm gonna be talking to the bosses. And he knows that I'm gonna be doing all of these things, and that if I have this information, I will turn it over to the authorities if there's a problem or if he's not being honest with me. Once I've done that, that puts all the ball back in his court. So it's his choice to whether to move forward or not. So because he didn't hesitate any step along the way, I did feel that it was legitimate. I did feel like I had enough evidence to be able to go out there and perform the task. And I did call and talk to the manager, and I did confirm everything with them. So these are just some ideas to plant seeds for you so that you can make sure that you cover your assets and make sure that you are doing your due diligence so you're not opening a vehicle, a car, a building, a home, a safe, a filing cabinet, anything without checking first, without making sure you're collecting all the proper information, collecting as much data as possible, and actually verifying it with the people that need to be doing it. That's the difference between a professional and a scammer. Please check out the rest of the video and enjoy. I hope that anybody out there that is not incorporating these techniques will start doing so. If you didn't know, now you can't say that you didn't know. And I hope, really hope, that most people are doing this, and this is just some reinforcement along the way. So thanks for watching. Have a great day. We'll watch me get into this. Oh, I'll go into that just a little bit too, but yeah, it was an exit device, and it had a Yale pericentric keyway on it, so they're kind of a little bit of a pain in the butt to pick. I noticed that I had some room with the glass on one side, and I also noticed that I had a lot of, it engaged, the exit trim engaged a lot. I could feel I was starting to retract that latch, probably a good 1/4 inch or more, just by lifting up on the handle. I had more travel going up, so we go up and then put the airbag in there. It actually spread the window side over the frame into the window, and the door popped right open. Didn't have to pick anything. Just had to have some really good airbags. So that's how we got in. Thanks for watching. Have a great day and enjoy the Locksmith documentary.
Here you can see what I was describing, where I looked at the lock and was able to realize that it would probably be easier to try and bypass as opposed to picking. So we used an airbag tool to simply spread the jam and got access quite quickly.
Okay, so what we did here is, this is a Yale pericentric keyway, and that was just a little bit tight, so we were able to actually go ahead and use an airbag to defeat the latch. Hold on one sec, I just got to document this. So you can see what I was feeling is I could feel that that lever was moving quite a bit, and so I was able to retract this and then get that air wedge in here, and it basically just spread the door open and popped that open.
This portion of the Locksmith documentary is presented by Freeman Manufacturing, our sponsor for precision tools for the locksmith professional. Check out Freeman Manufacturing.
Hey, so this is Wayne, and we are running a National Service Provider call, or an NSP. That stands, like you said, for National Service Provider. So basically, they're companies that service big box stores or chain locations. The managers, they don't really want the managers or anybody that's associated with security interacting with the service provider directly, because that could be a conflict of interest. The manager could pay off the locksmith for extra keys or safe combinations or something like that after they get fired. So it's kind of a loss prevention thing, and it's also kind of a liability thing too. If you have it go through 2 different companies, then I think, and I'm not an attorney, this is not legal advice at all, but there's a benefit to having the additional coverage, because that national service provider, if there's a problem, could be held liable, and so could the tech, in my opinion. So that's kind of where you get that from. But yeah, like if you want to if you want to get some of these bigger calls, you want to be on their preferred vendor list. That is the key terminology, and that's some business coaching stuff there. You want to be the preferred vendor for your area, and when you're the preferred vendor for your area, that means that you get the first right of refusal for each call. So if you are like all the companies that they service, and they usually, like one company kind of does auto parts stores, and one does coffee shops, and one does big box stores, and you know, things like that. If there's a problem at any of those locations that your skill set or your company solves, that's when you're going to get that call. So it can be lucrative. I've charged, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars. We probably do about $50,000 a year or so with national service providers. So when done properly, they can be profitable. But the counter portion of that is you have so much paperwork and so many hoops to jump through and so much red tape that a lot of people find that they're not worth dealing with. So my rule, and this is back to business coaching here, my number one rule is I always have, anytime it's a first interaction, I always make them pay with a credit card upon completion. And you have to get that in writing before you accept the call. Otherwise, they'll sneak out of it. So I tell them, hey, the first one we do, I'll accept your 30-day or 45-day or 90-day net terms or whatever it is after the fact, if I want to. Usually I won't accept anything over 45 days. I just think that's ridiculous. If you can't pay your bill within 45 days, then we don't need to do business. But they really need that, and they want you to be on their payment system. But the first time, always credit card up front or credit card upon completion, agreed upon in writing, in an email, because it's not going to matter if you just talked about it, right? Word of mouth doesn't play out in court or hold them accountable. So that's my take on it there. You can make money with NSPs. Like I said, you know, add 50, 60 grand a year to your total yearly income. Pretty sweet, but you do have to do it correctly. You do have to do it in a certain way. Otherwise, you'll find that you keep getting burned by these places because, you know, you didn't get a signature like you were supposed to, or you didn't call into the IVR system. And I always charge these companies more, a lot more, than my regular calls. Why do I do that? Well, the number one reason is I have to be able to, I have to jump through more hoops, and my office personnel, my bookkeeper and my operations manager is going to have to jump through more hoops because they keep having to remind these people to pay their bills because they're always looking for technicalities to get out of paying their bill or delaying payment. Therefore, because I know I have that extra administrative cost and just the overall headache and hassle of waiting for payment for so long, that I specifically make sure that those calls are usually $100 to $200 more than a standard call, just to deal with the headache and the nonsense that you got to deal with it. So look into national service providers. If done correctly, you can make money with them. You just have to have extremely rigid rules and standards, and you have to stick by your own standards, and do not let these companies push you around and try and tell you what to do and that you have to work on their terms, because you do not. They can call somebody else. If they don't agree to your terms, they can call somebody else. So just take that into account, and if you decide to work with national service providers, that's my take on it. So thanks for listening, and have a great day out there.
This portion of the documentary is brought to you by Frontline Defense Systems. Frontline Defense Systems, INC, for all of your door security needs. Now we're going to be installing the DTEX EAX500. This is actually the call that is for that national service provider that we talked about earlier. You'll notice the very large exit device that's on here, and you'll notice the wires running to it, and if you peek up in the upper left hand corner of the door jamb, you'll also see a magnetic lock up there. When you see this magnetic lock, that means that this is a delayed egress system. Now, as far as installing this DTEX EAX500, it's going to require you to take a look at the instructions and select the correct tailpiece for this. That is going to be the the first most important part of this project is selecting the correct drive cam or tailpiece. And in this case, it's actually going to need the beaver tail one or the other one that comes with it with the wider end as opposed to that narrower end that would be referred to as a Adams Wright style tailpiece. So we're going to switch that out real quick, pop the new beaver tail on there. That's going to be what we want to engage and interact with this particular DTEX EAX500. Now we just simply undo a couple screws, pop it on there, and we're good to go. Let me give you a little bit more information about the delayed egress system that is put on this door. Delayed egress is very complex and very complicated. The reason that we have delayed egress systems was originally to prevent shopping theft or shoplifting. So what would happen is the people know that if they come in and do what's called a smash and grab a bunch of stuff, meaning belongings or products at the store that are not theirs, and they smash through the door, they knew that the door had to open due to fire code, right? So we've got public area and fire security here. So that means that in the event of a fire, the door has to open to let people out. The criminals didn't take long for them to figure this out, so that means that the doors were not locked, so they could push on the panic bar, grab some things, and run out the back door, and by the time security even had an idea or clue, even if they're on videotape, it doesn't matter, they're already gone. So what they came up with was what's called delayed egress. The delayed egress means that when you push the button or push the exit device, it delays the egress or delays you being able to get out for 15 seconds, giving the store security team a chance to catch the person. Okay, so that's what that whole system is. So with this one, it required a mechanical exit device and that magnetic locking device up top. So you would push the exit device, it would trip a timer, 15 seconds later the exit device would then release and you would be on your way. As far as what we've got going on here, you've got the DTEX EAX500. It's very, very super easy to install. They give you a template. You literally just put the little clear plastic thing on the door, mark out your couple of holes, and the only thing that was somewhat difficult about this particular job is that we had to drill into a concrete-filled frame.
So we're going to bring it closed. Make sure that we're locked. Make sure that we're lined up there. Turn it on. You're going to get the indicators right here. You're gonna get our chirps, 1, 2, 3, and then we should be armed and ready to go. There it is. And there we have it. Now we're working.
This portion of the documentary is brought to you by Lock Labs, the makers of the Triton Plus key machine. This is the workhorse for my company. Highly recommended. We're now going to check out smart home automation. You're leaving 35% profit on the table if you are not checking out smart home automation. One of the companies that we utilize is Halo Pulsar, mostly due to their military-grade encryption system through their cameras and alarm and home security systems. This is the system I use and trust, and we're actually going to be installing this Alula bullet cam that is an outdoor camera. Here we've got the SD card. The SD card is going to go right into the back of this little weatherproof spot that we have right here. You can see the SD card, the little brass pieces or the connectors go towards you when you're installing this, and you'll also notice that little reset button there. That'll come in handy later. We also have the little antenna that makes it Wi-Fi compatible. Here I'm selecting a location and pointing at an outlet. I'm also pointing at the location where the camera is going to be. When I'm selecting a location, I want to make sure that it's close enough to the outlet so I can plug it in directly without having to use an extension cord, and I can hide the wire path or at least plan and map the wire path out. Here it's just 3 simple screws that screw it into the wood, and then you adjust the camera as you see fit. You have 2 choices. You can run this off of Wi-Fi or you can run it off of Ethernet, power over Ethernet. So you can power it through the low voltage transformer or you can power it over Ethernet. Here's the camera. Again, you can see those 2 screws or 3 screws that are on there. And I also just set in a little bit of a spacer in there because I actually wanted to rotate the camera slightly and give that wire a little bit more room, even though it already has its own cutout. Now the nice part about this is wire path is it goes right in through by the garage, and I didn't have to drill through anything. Now setting the camera up, I'm going to use this paper clip. I'm going to use that to poke in the tiny pin poke hole to reset the camera so that we can then log it onto the system. You can see that here. Once that's been reset, you can then add it to your camera collection on your app in the Halo Pulsar app. Here's what it looks like fully installed. You can barely notice it, and we have a satisfied customer. I also want to let people know that we are doing weekly podcasts called Locksmith Live, and we're going to be speaking with Brian Ireland from Halo Pulsar on this week's edition of Locksmith Live podcast. If you're interested in checking out the Locksmith Live podcast for your locksmith business or yourself, please just simply Google Locksmith Live and my name, Wayne Winton, WayneWinton, and it'll come right up, and that can be another powerful resource for you and your business. Thank you for watching.